Hello everybody and welcome to a new Deep Rock Galactic guide video here. Today, as you can see, we're going to be going over the perks of the game and kind of the perk system, how this all kind of works in Deep Rock Galactic. Because it's a pretty important but sometimes overlooked and can somewhat be confusing part of the game that I just wanted to cover in a video here. We're taking a break from the classes guide and overview video. We will be getting back to that after this video, and the driller, which is the next one coming, should be up in the next day or so. So yeah, looking forward to that coming back after this perk video. So yeah, let's delve into some perks here. So you can see there's a wide range of both active and passive perks available for your purchase and upgrade and use in Deep Rock Galactic here. So yeah, let's just go from the basic here. How do you even look at the perks? How do you get the points to upgrade them? How do you even look at where to unlock them and see what they are? So basically in your pod here, you're going to see two kind of terminals you can access. One is your character selection terminal, which you should already select your character when you come in or have it pre-selected for you, so that doesn't have anything to do with perks. It's this to the left here, your activate terminal here. This to the left here, which is your terminal for your statistics of whatever character you're playing, or just overall. It has your milestones, which are different achievements and stuff you can complete throughout the game, like complete 6 on-site refining missions or reach cosmetic mastery level 15, which give you some experience, as well as these two little perk star perk points here. And when you complete a milestone, you get 2 of these, or varies by mission, like 5 for this one. So yeah, you get these perk points by completing these different milestone missions, which can vary wildly as to what they actually are. And they give you perk points, and it can range from 1 or 2 all the way up to something like 5 for this. So yeah, basically completing these gives you those perk points, which can in turn be used over here in the perks window to, let's see, perk points. I have 1 star right now because I've upgraded some recently, which can be used to purchase and upgrade the perks available to you in Deep Rock Galactic. Each one of these costs a different amount of stars to unlock, like See You in Hell. Perk level 3 costs 11 to activate, so I need 10 more to upgrade them. Obviously on a base level, these things cost much less than something like on a level 3 upgrade or something here, which can cost 5 or 11, in this case, since it's the last orientation of this perk. So yeah, that's how you kind of unlock, and that's kind of how you get points to unlock perks, as well as the whole perk system. This is where you go to see the perks and unlock them. So yeah, let's just go over the perks in general now, that you know where to go to get them, as well as how to unlock them. By the way, by the milestones, these are not missions that you have to activate. These are always here, ready to be achieved by you. So whenever you normally just by naturally playing achieve one of these, it'll unlock in here, and every time you spawn into a new lobby, you can check, see if you have anything done, and collect some new perks, perk points, that is, and some new milestones. And this can also be filtered down by type of milestone, like cosmetics here, or different types of maps, stuff like that, beers, different types of milestone. So let's go back to the perks here. So the perks here, as you can see, are color coded. The red perks are your passive perks. These are bonuses and perks that are always active on your character when you have them equipped on him, that is, of course. These are bonuses and perks that always active. You don't activate them. There's no cooldown or activation. These are things that are always there, always affecting your character. So yeah. And the light blue ones here are active perks. These are perks that aren't always active. When you have these perks equipped, they aren't always active. You have to manually activate these perks to get whatever bonus and perks that they offer you, and that's how they're used. And they have cooldowns, stuff like that. You have to activate them. They're not always active. So yeah, But as you can see here, when you're reading these active perks, they a lot of times do have a passive part to them. So something like, Field Medic, what we got pulled up right here. There's an active part where you press left mouse button to activate the main part of it, which is once per mission, you can get a downed teammate instantly back on their feet. Because usually there's a time where you have to, um, a few seconds you have to use reviving them. This, you can just instantly run by them and get them up, which is very useful when you're getting chased by a lot of monsters and don't particularly have a lot of time to revive your teammate before getting killed. But there's a passive part of this active perk, which is Leave No Dwarf Behind. You revive teammates 15% faster overall anyways. That's something that's always active and always going to be there, unlike the active part of this perk, which is, once per mission and manually activated part ability that you have, basically. So yeah, as you can see, the active perks are a little more valuable and nice to have. That's why when you go over to the character selection and you're equipping perks to your character and your class, you can only have 2 of these max. And one is only unlocked after you prestige the certain class that you're playing on. So at base level, you only have 1 of these, but eventually it becomes 2, whereas you have 3 passive perk slots. So a little more valuable with the active perks. So now that we have the distinguish there, let's go over some of these perks. I'm going to tell you what they do, basically, as well as, show you the upgrade path to show you how many iterations of the perk there are, as well as just show you what they do and if they're safe, they're useful, for what class, for what situation, stuff like that. So let's start here on the Field Medic, which is the high. We've already told you what this is and everything about it because we use an example. So Field Medic, very valuable perk, very good perk for basically any class, to be honest. It's a perk that I run most of the time on my dwarfs. It's always going to be something that's useful, especially once you start playing on those deep dives or higher level hazard level missions. The chances of a teammate getting down just become incredibly high, and particularly getting downed when there's a lot of enemies around that you particularly can't sit there and spend 3 or 4 seconds reviving them, because if you do, you're probably going to die with them. This is something where you're getting swarmed or have a bunch of big monsters that are trying to kill you and your teammates, and one of them gets downed. Instead of having to, wait until all the bugs are away from them or throw a shield with like the gunner, you can literally just run by them, instantly revive them by pressing left mouse button, and he's back up and ready to fight. And the passive one makes it much easier to revive them in general as well. So definitely an all-around good perk, something that's pretty useful for most classes. I say it's least useful in the gunner because of the shield generator you have that you can, more safely get people up. But overall, Field Medic, very useful perk for any class, and goes all the way to the 4th iteration, as you can see in this here, which makes your passive up to 30% faster, and and also does the nearby enemies flee. Next, we've got Friendly, which is a passive perk. First passive perk we're going to be talking about in this. So yeah, Friendly. Throughout the power of friendship, you both take and deal 50% less damage from friendly fire, which on a base level seems like something that probably isn't that appealing to most people. But as you play in the game, especially when you play with gunners or drillers, it's something you realize is very nice to have. Both while you're using those classes or if you're in a game with those classes. Because friendly fire happens. And it happens a lot more than people initially think it happens when playing this game. So particularly, as I said, with classes like the driller and the gunner, they have weapons, for the gunner, the light machine guns, the autocannons, the missiles, and the cluster grenades. And with the driller, the flamethrower, the cryo cannon, the proximity, the charges, I guess, the flammable gas grenades that have very wide radiuses of damage, and is very easy to accidentally, as you're spraying and throwing these weapons, very easy to catch up one of your friends in it, because they have wide radius. They're meant for crowd control, and it's very hard to directly aim this stuff at an area that isn't where one of your buddies is, maybe, or maybe they run into it accidentally because they don't think it's as big of a radius as it actually is. So yeah, very useful perk to have, either on the receiving end of what I just talked about, or if you're the driller or the gunner and you don't want to do a bunch of damage to your teammates. So I'd say, if you're playing, it's an overall good perk. I'd say if you're playing as a driller or even a gunner, I'd say it's a good perk to take with you. And if you want to be safe because you have a pretty stupid driller or gunner with you, pick it up on whatever class you're playing with them. Next, we got Heightened Senses. You can see a lot of iterations for this. Goes up to about 3, I believe. So the passive part is you get an early warning when a creature's about to grab you. So like tentacles that are coming out of the wall, or one of those flying bastards that grab you and like fly you around, you get a warning, which is actually pretty nice. It's pretty useful passive perk, because a lot of times those fuckers do come out of nowhere and just grab you. So yeah, nice to have. Active perk is 1 times per mission. You can escape after being grabbed, killing your captor in the process. So again, the active honestly isn't that useful. Especially with the passive part where you have an early warning about creatures about to grab you, you're really less likely to be grabbed in the first place. So it's nice to have, because being grabbed can definitely, be bad. You can take a lot of damage and not be able to do anything for a solid amount of time. But again, not that useful of a perk, especially when you already have a passive that warns you about this. Plus, killing your captor, most of the times when you get grabbed, with or without this perk, your teammate will know pretty quickly and basically just shoot down whatever is carrying you, usually killing it and releasing you. So that's basically the same effect. So this perk is kind of so-so. I'd say for the passive early warning, it's somewhat nice to have, but to be honest, you don't get grabbed that much. Not a lot of caves even have things that can grab you, so somewhat a situational perk. So, if you want to have it just to add something on, fine. I just think there's more useful perks out there, but overall, not a terrible perk, especially in the later iterations and stuff where you can use your active ones quicker. Next, we got another passive perk called Second Wind. You get an 8% sprint bonus, which obviously increases as you go down the iterations of Second Wind. And effect activates after running for 5 seconds. After you're running for a long time, the boost kicks in, so you run even faster than you usually do. And that goes down every time. The activation part goes down every time you upgrade it. So, not an incredibly useful perk here. Getting that boost after you've been running for a while. First of all, it's not a massive boost. Yes, you notice it, especially once you get to the 12% boost to the last iteration, and how it hits faster in that iteration. But to be honest, not a terribly useful perk. To be honest, running isn't a huge deal in this game. You can already run fairly fast and run away from most of your problems as is. Obviously with this it helps, but you don't find yourself needing to be running that fast very often, if ever at all, really. Is it nice to have if you're trying to run from a swarm? I guess. But to be honest, you can already run from a swarm with most other characters. And if you can't, there's ways that you can shoot them and deal with them or distract them, or travel in faster ways, like a zip line, as the scout or as the gunner. So yeah, not the most useful perk, but I mean, I guess it has its niche uses, so not something I would recommend using that well. Next we got See You in Hell, an active perk. Passive version is right after an enemy hits you with melee attack, you get a temporary melee damage bonus. And the active version is 3 times each mission. You can trigger a large neuropulse explosion after you go down, a residual electric field will electrocute and scare off enemies after the explosion, and has a 2-minute cooldown. So yeah, This perk, I think it's a little more situational, not as great. Um, the whole passive part of the perk, really having a melee damage bonus isn't very effective or good. Yes, there are situations where using your pickaxe on smaller animals or aliens can help because you don't want to use any ammo on them. But to be honest, the the aliens you're using your pickaxe on already die within 1 to 3 shots of a pickaxe. So having that boost doesn't really do much for you. And it's after you get hit by them, so not much of a defensive perk there if you're already getting hit by these fucking things. There's also a beer, a specialty beer, which obviously isn't always around, but there is a special event beer that does the same thing where you get extra pickaxe damage. So something that gets kind of replaced and outdone by a beer occasionally, not great. And then the active version of this, um, having that explosion when you go down in the field around you, actually isn't too bad of a perk. So when you're in one of those big swarms or boss fights, and you get downed, having the ability to basically kill and then scare off and damage anything around you while you're down can make it a lot easier for one of your teammates to revive you. So you have lot better chance of getting revived and a lot better chance of getting revived quickly. That being said, I think there's a lot of ways that this perk can not really be that useful because if you have a gunner with a shield generator or an engineer with a decoy grenade, um, it can kind of do the exact same thing of distracting or not being attacked by those enemies and letting you be revived anyways. So overall, See You in Hell, even like the third iteration of this, really isn't that great of a perk. Next we got Thorns, which goes to iteration 4 here, which is what I have. All the way up to 24 damage, starts at about 6 damage, so not much. Thorns is a passive perk. Anytime an enemy damages you with a melee attack, it itself will take 6 all the way up to 24 in the last version damage. This is actually a more useful perk, passive perk to throw into one of your 3 slots and people realize. Um, because a lot of times in a lot of missions, regardless of what class you are, really, you're gonna have a lot of small enemies like those spiderlings or whatever, and even the grunts, the slashers, the guards, um, just be around you and sneak up on you and try to do damage to you. But this way, especially with those spiderlings, like those really small enemies, you don't really have to deal with them after they attack you, like surprisingly, because usually this will kill them or incredibly weaken them. So it's kind of just something to help you deal with small enemies and keep them off your back. So not the most incredibly overpowered perk or anything, but something nice to add to one of your 3 slots if nothing else really catches your fancy. Something I find myself using a lot myself. Next we got Veteran Depositor, another passive perk. Goes all the way up to iteration 4 over there, as you can see the flashing icon. This passive perk, Expert Bucket Handling. You now deposit valuables into mule and other deposit points 20% faster, and 20% damage reduction while within 7 meters of the mule and other deposit points. So Veteran Depositor actually isn't a terrible perk. It has its uses. When you have a large amount of stuff to deposit, and there's a swarm or big enemies around, but you need to get these in before you leave, before you complete an objective, or just, to get it done and over with. It can be very helpful to deposit that much faster than you otherwise would be able to. And the damage reduction, the 20% on even the first level, but obviously goes up to about 30 and 50% respectively on each one of these. The last perk rating is very useful. Obviously, it's somewhat situational with if you have a mule around or if you're playing something like an extraction point thing where you have deposit sites readily available where you have like a central defense point set up around them. But definitely has its uses where you're going to be using the mule a lot or you're going to be having a game mode like an extraction point thing where one of those, mine deposits with the lights and the turrets comes down. So in that case, I think it can be a rather useful perk to have. But if you're not playing on one of those objectives or game modes, I don't know how useful this really is. It's a fairly useful and powerful niche perk, in my opinion. Let's see where our next one is here. Resupply is our next. Has 4 iterations. You can see it all the way down here. So yeah, resupply. You're a busy dwarf. Got aliens to shoot. Stock up on ammo and health 20% faster at the resupply pods. Regain an extra 10% health when you resupply. After resupplying, all weapons instantly reload. So this is actually a really, I don't know if it's underrated because I don't know the consensus on the perks, to be honest, but I like this perk. It's something I find myself running quite often, especially on people who have guns with magazines that I have to reload, like the gunner, for example. Assuming you're not using the minigun. This is something I use quite often as one of my 3 passive perks, and is really powerful, especially once you get to the 4th iteration here. Because especially with gunners and drillers, anything but the scout, to be honest, you're gonna be burning through a lot of ammo, especially game modes and maps that have more enemies and more game modes predicated towards killing. You're gonna be using resupply pods a lot, and being able to get your ammo and health from those faster, all the way up to 50% faster, really lets you survive more and get back into the action faster. And then the extra health, all the way up to 25%, as you can see here, is a great feature. Because a lot of times you've gotten down, you've taken a lot of damage, or maybe you fell somewhere and took a lot of damage. Every little bit of health you can get from a resupply pod is a good by me. Obviously you can find red sugar, but sometimes there's not an abundance of that, or sometimes it's already been used, so it's something nice to have in a situation like that. And then all weapons instantly reload is also very nice to have. This way, it gets you back into the action faster and makes, if you have a swarm, you just resupply and everything, but you have to reload these ammo boxes, especially something like a gunner with an autocannon who has a much longer reload animation than some of the other guns. It's nice to just instantly be able to take out your gun again and shoot whatever is trying to kill you. So, in my opinion, very good perk and resupply here, and almost always useful, I found. I actually got another active perk here in hover boots. Pretty cool little perk here. Goes all the way up to iteration 4 over here. Hover boots, active, fancy. It doesn't have a passive for this one. Fancy boots that let you hover in midair for 2 seconds. 120-second cooldown. Press C while airborne to activate. Press C or space while hovering to deactivate. So these, usually in my opinion, aren't very useful for the majority of classes and situations. First of all, you don't get a passive perk with this active perk, so it really kind of sucks. And second of all, kind of situational as to when these are ever going to be useful. From what I've seen, the consensus seems like it's almost exclusively a perk used by scout players. Because when you're ziplining up on those high walls and cliffs and ceilings, you sometimes fall, and you can fall into high places. And this makes it so you don't kill yourself from those falls, and you can just hover before you hit the ground. That's where it's incredibly useful. So for scouts, this is a very good perk to add on. For every other class, not very useful. I can see situations where this environmental damage, like lava maps, where maybe, I don't want to deal with the small amount of damage I'll take anyways from the environmental damage, where I can hover over this. Sometimes it's useful, but really, most of the case, unless you're a scout, don't take this perk, to be honest. Next we got Iron Will. It goes all the way up to iteration 4 here. Iron Will doesn't have a passive, just an active. What it does, never give up. Once per mission, get back into the fight with all of your weapons reloaded and a rage-fueled strength for a 6-second last stand before going down for good. While in this state, you move faster, hit harder, and are resistant to slowdowns, so make it count. Hold space to activate after going down to activate. This, yes, it's an incredible perk, but it's something that is a pretty solid perk to throw in with a passive, or with one of your active slots. especially when you have two. So, at itself, it's useful because after you go down, a lot of times mobs will just, kind of swarm your body and make it difficult for your allies, especially if they don't have a lot of ammo to waste on you, to actually get to you to revive you in a timely fashion. This will make it so for those 6 seconds that it lasts, or even longer, I'm sure, with the last iteration of it, you can kind of clear out any mob around you, as well as help your team fight off any mobs that are trying to kill them, so that when you do go down for good, it's much easier to revive you without danger to your team. So overall, pretty solid perk. Definitely one that I'd consider throwing in if you're not sure what to use for your second active perk slot. But overall, I don't think it's the best here, but definitely has its uses. Next, we got Berserker, which is an active perk. Doesn't have a passive version of it. So active, go Berserk for 10 seconds, during which you get boosted melee damage and a lightning fast pickaxe power attack recharge. As a 10-minute cooldown, activate by pressing left and right mouse button while your power attack is recharging. So this Berserker, as you see here, has about 4 iterations, ending all the way over here. Isn't very good. Even in the last iteration where this perk has less of a cooldown, so you can use it a lot more, not a great perk. To use as one of your very limited 2 or even 1 active perk slots isn't a useful perk. Having a 10-second ability where you can do more damage with a pickaxe isn't very useful in any other situation other than the fact that you can sometimes, be out of ammo or something and just need to kill a lot of swarm units. In any other situation, it's not really useful or practical to use. And as we've said, we have even other passive perks and even a beer that help do damage melee-wise to other enemies. So it's something that's not a very unique perk as far as boosting melee damage goes, or ability. So yeah, not a fan of Berserker here. But I guess it's kind of cool, so if you want to use it, go ahead. Next we got Elemental Insulation. I believe this has... Oh, I guess it only has 3 iterations of it. Yeah. Ending all the way over here with a grand total of about 30% resistance. This is a passive perk. What this does is you get a 20, 25, I believe 30, depending on which iteration you have, resistance to all elemental damage. So this is situationally a very strong passive perk to equip to one of your classes. Obviously, you have to be going to a map that has elemental damage or, elemental effects. Something like a lava or an ice map or a poison map. If you're just going to a regular map or a salt map or something like salt mines or whatever, this isn't going to be useful for you, as there really isn't any elemental damage to be insulated from. So that about wraps that up. Situationally very strong if you go into a heavy elemental map. Other than that, not very useful to take with you. Let's see here. We got Sweet Tooth, 3 iterations going all the way through. 30% all the way to 30% more, with about and also gives you that there. So basically what this does on a base level is a passive perk that getting a taste for this stuff. Get 10% more healing from consuming red sugar, and eventually you get the perk of get up to 30%, but 20% movement speed bonus for 10 seconds after consuming red sugar. That's the grand total of this perk. But again, quite useful passive perk to have on really any situation in any class. Getting 30% more healing from red sugar means you don't have to use nearly as much, and you can save more for later for your teammates. On addition, having a 20% movement speed bonus, not a great perk, but something nice to throw into the 3rd iteration for me. So, well, very, very consistent and powerful perk to have. Next, we got new passive perk slot. Obviously, this isn't really a perk, but basically, it's once you unlock this, you can have 2 passive perks at the same time. So, obviously, something you want to get to rather quickly. Next, we got, let's see here, what do we have next? Strong Arm. Strong Arm has 3 or 4 iterations, and near the end here. As you can see, I don't have this unlocked, but I can look at what it does. So what this does, passive perk, you throw flares with 20% more focus than the average dwarf. Whoosh. Gems and other heavy objects get a 10% throwing bonus. All the way up to the 4th version, where it gets a 50 and 20% respectively bonus for that. The reason I don't have this unlocked is for a reason. It's not that useful. This is very situational. For the second part, the gems and other heavy objects, it's not all the time that you're going to be running into this. For specific missions where you have to extract those gems, it can be useful. And some, even on those, it's not as useful as you think it'd be, because you can really just carry and throw them fairly far without the perk, and it's not something you really need to be wasting a perk slot on. And the 20% more force, or going up as perks increase, for throwing your flares, not really a good thing. First of all, unless you're a scout, flaring isn't your primary job. Scouts shoot the flare gun, and that flares up the most of the part of the room that you're in. As for your regular flare, don't really need the extra force to flare it. The base perk is fine, and it gets it anywhere you would really need or want it to be. It's a pretty useless perk, but I guess it's kind of funny to throw it really far, so I don't know. Next we got Unstoppable here, which is another passive perk. Unstoppable, basically what this does, nothing holds you back. Environmental slowdown effects are reduced by 20%, and you move 10% faster while carrying heavy objects. This has about 4 iterations, and then all the way up here. So Unstoppable, not very useful perk. Actually, it's a somewhat niche useful perk. If you're playing on a map, something say like an ice map, where you have a lot of slowing effects of the environment, Unstoppable 4 particularly can be a very useful thing for getting around the map in a timely manner. I'd say that's really the only time I could see you using this, is when you're in a map like an ice map, for example, with elemental effects that slow your movement speed down. Any other time, don't take this perk. The 25% faster while carrying heavy objects isn't really, again, not very useful. A lot of times your regular speed at carrying those or just throwing those is fine, or you can be ziplining down and stuff, which makes it a lot faster process to get back down to wherever you need to be. Still not very useful secondary bonus there. So again, very niche, but somewhat good perk there, I guess. Next we got Dash, an active perk. Active doesn't have a passive. Get out of trouble with a sure burst of speed. While dashing, you ignore all slowdown effects. 40-second cooldown. Pretty bad active perk here. Again, speed bonuses aren't the most useful thing in the world. I guess it can get you out of a hairy situation every once in a while, but the more surefire way of getting out of a hairy situation is just running regularly or distracting your enemies or just killing them. It's not very useful. And ignoring slowdown effects, again, not terrible. Same thing with the last perk we just talked about with the Unstoppable. Useful in niche slowdown environment effects, but if you're not in one of those, pretty useless. And also has a passive perk that does the exact same thing as this does, basically. So not very useful perk overall. Not much of a reason to take this, but if you want to, go ahead. I don't know. Next we got Beastmaster, ending with passive or active perk, ending with 4th all the way down here. This is a perk that I use quite a bit. It's a pretty fun, unique perk here. You can see it does have a passive, but the active is Charm a Glyphid Grunt to become a loyal companion. You can only have one tamed grunt at a time, has a 5-minute cooldown. So you can tame grunts as well as grunt slashers and guards. Any iteration of a grunt, really. To be basically your ally. And what he does is he protects you. He kills other enemies. And that ranges all the way from the spiraling things and other grunts to even like an oppressor or something he'll try to kill. The reason I like this so much and why I use it is just having a grunt near you to protect you and your teammates is nicer than you think it is. It's basically a crowd control source. It takes care of a lot of those smaller enemies that you otherwise would have to spend ammo killing. And it can also help protect your back while you're mining for stuff, so you don't have to deal with a bunch of enemies that you otherwise would have to watch out and deal with. And it's something that you can always use. There's always going to be grunts no matter what mission and map you're on, and it's something that can always be used effectively and all the time for a good benefit. So that's why I like Beast Master. Next we got Vampire here. Ending the 4th iteration all the way over here. What Vampire does is, good thing you work underground. Regain 5 health when you kill a medium-sized or larger creature with a melee attack. This can be situationally somewhat good, because when you're running low in a swarm and stuff of health and you're trying not to die, you can turn out your pickaxe and kill a lot of smaller enemies to regain a fair amount of health. Obviously, the first iteration of this, only 2 health, not great, but if you get all the way up to 5, not terrible. You can kill a lot of enemies with the pickaxe rather quickly. They try to regain some health to just try to get some survivability back, basically. Overall, though, kind of a niche perk. Has other perks like the resupplier and the sweet tooth that are much more beneficial for regaining your health in a much more efficient way. And something that, in its use of using melee attack to try to regain health, if you're down to that point where even 5 health with a melee attack on a medium-sized target counts towards your survivability, you're probably already screwed. And using a melee target or melee weapon as a pickaxe to try to survive usually doesn't go well. You're better off using your guns and any distractions and grenades you might have to help you. So, not a great perk here. Next, we got Shield Link all the way up here with the 3rd iteration, as you can see. So the passive, this does have a passive effect. The passive effect is whenever you are within 4 meters of a teammate, both of your shields recharge 50% faster. This is a very nice passive perk to have. And the active effect has a 2-minute cooldown, and you can overcharge the teammate's shield to 300% for 30 seconds. This is something I like to use a lot, something I use almost all the time, and is a very good active perk to bring with you. First of all, the passive effect, very useful. Whenever you and your teammates are, bunched up trying to fight a big enemy or a swarm, this is where the thing really hits. Having the ability to recharge your shield faster, which helps protect you 50% faster, is very useful for helping with team and your survivability. Active effect. Overcharging a shield's teammate to 300% for 30 seconds and only having a 2-minute cooldown on that is a good, powerful perk. Having the ability to overcharge and protect your teammate that well, because having a 300% overcharged shield provides a shit ton of survivability and support for whatever teammate you're putting it on. So it basically is a get out of jail free card for your teammate getting his ass swarmed by a bunch of aliens. It's a very useful perk and support perk to be bringing. At least 1 or 2 of your teammates want to bring. So definitely something you should bring, at least one of you for every one of your raids. Next you got Deep Pockets here. That's a passive perk, all the way up to 3 iterations of this. Basically what this does is leave nothing behind. For each of your mineral pouches, hold plus 15 for the 3rd iteration, that is, more valuables. This isn't a terrible perk, especially in mining missions where you have to collect a large amount of minerals and resources to complete the objective. It can be very useful in those situations, or something like a gold rush where you need to hold a lot of gold. But you'll find that plus 15 more valuables really isn't a substantial amount more of valuables. It can be good to have for you guys as teammates, you and your teammates, when you have, again, those mass mineral pickup missions where you have to pick up hundreds of these resources. I think 15 more each trip can make a difference. But other than those type of specific missions, I wouldn't take these, as it's not really useful. Another situation where I could see you taking this as a gold rush. So yeah, those 2 situations, I could see 1 or 2 or all of your teammates taking these to make the mission a little faster. But other than that, doesn't really have much application outside of that. Next, we got Born Ready. Has all the way up to 3 iterations over here in the last slot. Is a passive perk. What it does is unequipped weapons automatically reload after 5 seconds. Not a very great passive perk, in my opinion. First of all, reloading, waiting 5. There's really not a bunch of situations where this either doesn't get outdone by another perk or is very useful or applicable in any situation, really. Unequipped weapons get automatically reloaded. First of all, once your ammo runs out of a magazine, you generally immediately reload it. And if your gun doesn't have ammo, you usually reload it as soon as you do get ammo anyways. So the only thing I can see this being useful for is you have a secondary that ran out of ammo, you resupply, and you wait 5 seconds before using it, probably because you want to use your main weapon, and then 5 seconds after it gets reloaded so you don't have to bother reloading it yourself. That's where I can see a benefit of this, but not something that comes up all the time. Having to wait 5 seconds for this kick to perk in, or perk to kick in, is not very good, because I can just reload myself in less than 5 seconds if I really wanted to. So maybe for secondaries that you don't have the time or patience to reload and just want it there in the back pocket just in case you need to pull it out, it's useful for that. But that's all the application I can see. Not to mention the resupplier one, which automatically reloads your weapons after you resupply, is basically taking half of that functionality away, because every time you reload, both your primary and secondary weapons instantly get reloaded. So you have to wait 5 seconds, and it's not really just useful for your secondary weapon that you don't take out that much. So really not that great of a perk. Let's see here. I believe we only have one perk left to go over, and that is, it's a bug thing, passive perk. Has about 2 iterations. Here you can see second iteration going at the end here. I believe that's the last perk we're going to be covering for this, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's a bug thing, it's a passive perk, and you can see the first and the second iteration compared there. So what it does, for some reason, loot bugs explode whenever you get within 5, or if you have the first iteration, through 2 meters of them. So this is kind of just a funny little meme, I guess, perk they threw into the game. On a practical standpoint, very irrational to use this. Doesn't provide much of a benefit at all, and is rather useless, because within 2 or 5 meters of a loot bug, you can just pickaxe or shoot them to death instead, or you can kill them from a farther distance away without having to get close to them. So not very useful. Also, you can't pet loot bugs when you go near this, so another negative of that. But on a funny, cool standpoint, yeah, it's a cool perk. It's funny to see them explode once in a while if you're kind of a sick freak that wants to see nice little creatures explode. Yeah, not something I like to take with me, obviously. So that wraps up all of our perks here and what they do, and if I have recommendations for you when to use them, or if I think they're useful or not. So yeah, covers all the perks. In the last part of this video, I'm going to go over the equipment terminal and show you how to equip different perks and everything, and what, how to get those perks. So yeah, this is where you select your perks on your character selection. Basically, you click on a perk, you click on whatever perk you want to equip, and it equips it for you. Let's do, I can't remember, what did I just have? Not a sweet tooth, I don't know, whatever. So yeah, I believe you start with 2 passive perks and 1 active perk, but as you get the upgrades for unlocking more passive perks, you get 1 and 2 unlocked, and you start with 1 active perk, but as you prestige your character, as you can see, my gunner is prestige with the star up here, you get your second, once you prestige your character, you get your second active perk thrown in there. As you can see, if you switch to something like a scout, while I have all the passive perks unlocked for all my characters, he only has 1 active perk unlocked because I have not prestiged. I'm promoted by a scout. That's the same for basically every other one of my characters, even the engineer, which is close to being there. So yeah, that's how the slots work and how to equip your perks. Same thing for the active perks, for how to select them. So yeah, that's the whole perks rundown and the systems you use for selecting and looking at perks and unlocking them. And yeah, hope you guys found this video helpful and informative. If you like the videos, like, subscribe. Really helps out grow the channel and the videos. And comment down below what your favorite perks are, what for use per class. And I'll see you guys in the next video.